She expected a gift because it was literally Boxing Day. The box sat outside her door. She carried it inside, set it on the kitchen counter, and grabbed scissors. One cut through the tape as she pulled back the cardboard flaps with eager hands. She froze instantly. No scarf or book. No gift at all for that matter. A gun lay inside, cold, black, nestled in foam padding like expensive jewelry. Beside it, a burner phone. And underneath both, a folded note with 3 words that made her blood run cold: "Do not return." Her hands trembled as reality crashed over her in waves. She wasn't supposed to see this. And whoever sent it was coming to get it back. Naomi Carter lived alone in a mid-rise apartment in downtown Atlanta. 26 years old, sharp-minded and independent. She wore an oversized burgundy sweater and fuzzy socks. It was supposed to be a quiet day, no plans, no drama, just the comfortable stillness that follows Christmas chaos. But as usual, life had other plans, and she was shocked to her teeth when she opened the delivery supposed to contain her Christmas presents. For several seconds, Naomi just stared, her analytical mind struggling to process what her eyes were seeing while her body locked into fight or flight mode. Her breath came in shallow gasps. She realized she'd been holding it. She forced herself to breathe slowly, 4 counts in, 4 counts out, the way her therapist had taught her during a stressful period at work. She examined the box more carefully, looking for any clue about how this catastrophic mistake had happened. The label definitely had her name and apartment number. But as she turned the box to check all sides, she found a secondary label on the bottom corner, partially hidden: basement storage locker, Unit 4C. Her stomach dropped hard. Whoever owned this box, whoever had hidden a gun and untraceable phone in basement storage, was going to realize very soon that their package was missing. Naomi's hands moved with deliberate precision as she carefully rewrapped everything exactly as she'd found it. She refolded the note along its original creases, placed it back in the exact same position, situated the phone and gun back in their foam cutouts, and closed the cardboard flaps so they aligned perfectly. She carried the box to her bedroom, opened her closet, and shoved it behind her winter coats, burying it under a pile of sweaters where it wouldn't be immediately visible. Then she grabbed her personal phone and systematically photographed everything she could remember: the exterior labels, the note with its ominous words, the gun, the phone. She uploaded all the photos to a private cloud folder, secured it with a complex password, and enabled 2-factor authentication. If something happened to her, at least there would be evidence. She sat at her kitchen table, forcing her analytical mind to work through the situation methodically. Fact 1. The box was mislabeled and delivered to her apartment instead of basement storage. Fact 2. It contained a weapon and untraceable communication device. Someone involved in serious criminal activity owned this. Fact 3. She had opened the box, examined its contents, and activated the phone. Fact 4. If the phone had tracking capabilities, someone now knew it had been moved and powered on. Fact 5. Whoever owned this would come looking, and when they did, they would eventually trace it to her. 3 options presented themselves with brutal clarity. Call the police. But what if that put a target on her back? What if the owner found out she'd involved law enforcement? Return it to the basement herself, but what if the owner was watching? What if they saw her and assumed she'd looked inside? Do nothing, but the damage was done. She'd seen it, touched it, activated a phone that might have GPS. Naomi checked all her locks twice, pulled every blind closed even though it was still afternoon, and tried to calm her racing heart. Her rational mind insisted she shouldn't panic. But her instincts, millions of years of evolution designed to keep humans alive, screamed a different truth. She was being watched. And someone was coming. Across the city, Jun Kong stared at a blinking red dot on his laptop screen with an expression that revealed nothing of the frustration churning beneath his calm exterior. The red dot represented a GPS tracker embedded in the burner phone, standard security for all equipment his organization kept in storage locations. The phone should have been sitting quietly in a basement locker, powered off and undisturbed. Instead, according to the tracking log on his secondary monitor, the phone had briefly pinged 2 days ago on Boxing Day, just for a few seconds, barely long enough to register a location before going dark again. June's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, the only outward sign of his displeasure. At 32, he had built his reputation on precision, on operations that ran smoothly without complications, on professionalism that separated his organization from sloppy amateurs who drew police attention. And right now, someone had compromised that carefully maintained security. His second-in-command, Min, stood on the other side of the desk, tense and waiting. "The courier," June finally said, his voice quiet but carrying an edge. "Who handled the delivery to the storage facility?" "Checking the logs now," Min replied, fingers moving across his tablet. "But according to our procedures, the box was never supposed to leave building management's possession. It should have been placed directly in the locker." June's eyes remained fixed on the blinking dot. Someone opened it. Someone turned on the phone. Which means someone saw what was inside. The implications hung heavy between them. A random civilian now possessed knowledge that could connect back to their operations if law enforcement became involved. "Find out who lives in apartment 4C, June instructed. Min nodded and pulled out his phone to make calls. June leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled in front of his face. Retrieving the box immediately would be the obvious move, but obvious moves were often wrong when dealing with potential security breaches. If he sent people to forcibly retrieve it, that would confirm the box was valuable and dangerous, potentially motivating whoever had it to go to the police or use the information as leverage. If they'd already contacted law enforcement, moving too quickly would only deepen the exposure. June had learned early in his career that killing someone was easy. Making them disappear without consequences was much harder. And avoiding the need to kill them in the first place was hardest of all, but usually the smartest play. He would meet this person himself. Not immediately, not aggressively, but carefully, in a way that would tell him everything he needed to know. June intended to control every aspect of what came next. 2 days after Naomi had hidden the box, someone knocked on her door at just after 3 in the afternoon. The knock was firm but not aggressive. Naomi moved silently to the door and checked the peephole. Her breath caught in her throat. The man standing in her hallway bore no resemblance to the forgettable operative from yesterday. This man commanded attention simply by existing, radiating calm authority that made it instantly clear he was the person actually in charge. He was Korean, tall, impeccably dressed in a dark wool coat over what she could see was a perfectly tailored suit. His hands rested casually in his pockets as if he had all the time in the world. His face was striking, sharp jawline, intelligent dark eyes, features that could belong to a CEO except for the unmistakable hardness underlying them. Most unsettling was his complete stillness. He didn't fidget, didn't check his phone, didn't look around. He simply stood there, patient and focused entirely on her door, as if he knew she was watching and wanted her to take her time. "Miss Carter," he said, his voice quiet but clear, pitched just loud enough to carry through the door without shouting. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to threaten you. I just need 5 minutes of your time to discuss a situation that I think we both know has become complicated. Before we continue, can I ask you a question? Where in the world are you watching from? Comment below because we'd love to know how far these stories travel, and hit that subscribe button for more amazing stories. I'll really appreciate it. Alright, thank you. Let's jump back in." Her hand hovered over the deadbolt. Opening this door would be irrevocable. But refusing wouldn't make him or his organization disappear. It would only delay the inevitable. "Who are you?" she called through the door. "Someone who lost a package," he replied matter-of-factly. "And I believe you found it." At least he was being direct. She could respect that even if everything else terrified her. "I don't know what you're talking about," she tested. "You're intelligent, so I'll be direct. The box you received on Boxing Day wasn't meant for you. It was mislabeled. I need it back. But I can't simply take it without understanding the full situation, whether you've involved anyone else, whether you understand what you found, whether we can resolve this quietly and safely for everyone involved." The fact that he acknowledged her intelligence, that he spoke to her as a person capable of reasoning rather than just an obstacle, gave her a sliver of confidence. "If I had something that wasn't mine," she said carefully, "why would I still have it? Why wouldn't I have called the police or tried to return it? Because calling the police would have been dangerous for you, he replied without hesitation. And returning it yourself, without knowing who you were returning it to, would have been even worse. So you made the smart choice, you kept it safe and waited to see what would happen. That shows judgment. That shows you can think under pressure. And that's exactly why I'm here talking to you instead of handling this another way. His words carried an implicit threat, but delivered so calmly it almost didn't register as one. Naomi took a deep breath. She unlocked the deadbolt, but kept the chain on, opening the door just a few inches. I'm armed, she lied, wanting him to know she wouldn't be completely vulnerable. Understood, he said simply, not challenging the claim, not smiling at what might be obvious bluff. She studied him through the gap, and he studied her right back. Up close, she noticed details invisible through the peephole, the way his dark eyes were calm but alert, missing nothing. The expensive watch visible beneath his coat sleeve indicating serious money. And he was, she had to admit despite her fear, remarkably handsome. This wasn't supposed to be someone attractive. This was supposed to be a dangerous criminal she should fear without complication. You came alone, she observed, noting the empty hallway. Would you have opened the door if I'd brought others? Fair point. She almost wanted to smile despite the circumstances. You're not what I expected, he said, genuine surprise in his tone. What did you expect? Panic. Tears. Maybe police already involved. Someone who couldn't handle pressure rationally. I don't panic, she said, meaning it. I analyze problems. I can see that, he replied, and the corner of his mouth moved in what might have been the beginning of a smile. She studied his face for another long moment, and against every survival instinct screaming at her to slam the door and call 911, against every reasonable fear of what this man represented, she made a choice. She closed the door just enough to unhook the chain, then opened it wider and stepped back. If this goes badly, she said quietly as he stepped across her threshold, I have documentation. Photos uploaded to cloud storage. Evidence that will connect you to what's in that box if anything happens to me. Smart, he said, not seeming bothered by the threat. That's exactly what I would have done. Shows you understand leverage. He stood in her living room but didn't sit, didn't touch anything, just maintained a respectful distance that somehow made her feel slightly less threatened. And impossibly, Naomi felt the first tiny flicker of something that wasn't quite fear anymore. Not trust, not yet, but the beginning of a possibility that maybe, just maybe, this could end without violence. The phone you turned on, June said, getting straight to business, sent a brief ping to our tracking system. That's how I found you. The signal only lasted a few seconds, but it was enough to pinpoint this apartment. Naomi's stomach sank. I only turned it on for maybe 10 seconds. Just curiosity. 10 seconds is all it takes with GPS tracking, he replied without judgment. So yes, I know you saw what was inside. I know you examined the contents. And I know you've been trying to figure out what to do about it. And now you're here to make sure I don't talk. He met her eyes directly. No. I'm here because I need your help and you need mine. That genuinely surprised her. Help? With what? The courier who mislabeled that box, he's a traitor. Someone we've been watching for weeks, because we suspected he was feeding information to a rival organization. This mistake wasn't random. It was deliberate. Naomi's analytical mind immediately started processing implications. He wanted the box to be found. To expose you. Exactly. He thought it would go to someone who'd immediately call the police, or someone who'd panic and make noise. What he didn't count on was someone like you, someone who'd think strategically and stay quiet. So where does that leave us? June's expression remained calm, but she could see the calculation in his eyes. If I retrieve the box too quickly, he'll know we're onto him. He'll disappear before we can find out who he's working for or what other information he's leaked. But if I don't retrieve it soon, he'll realize his plan failed and come looking for it himself. And he'll come here. To me. Yes. He has access to delivery records. He can trace the mislabeled package. Which means you're in danger whether you want to be or not. Naomi crossed her arms, her mind racing through scenarios. So you need me to keep the box for now. Keep it safe while you handle your internal problem. Temporarily, yes. A few days, maybe a week. Until I can identify everyone involved in the betrayal and neutralize the threat. During that time, I can protect you. Make sure you're safe. But I need your cooperation. And what do I get out of this? Besides not being killed by a traitor courier. A slight smile crossed his face, so brief she almost missed it. Besides staying alive? You get my word that once this is over, you walk away clean. No involvement, no exposure, no connection to any of this. Like it never happened. She studied him carefully, weighing his words against her instincts. Everything about this was insane. She was negotiating with a crime boss in her living room about harboring illegal items while he dealt with internal betrayal. This should be the moment she ran screaming to the police. But something in his manner, the direct way he spoke to her, the fact that he'd come alone and unarmed to have this conversation, it all suggested he was telling the truth, at least about needing her cooperation rather than just silencing her. If I do this, she said slowly, I want regular updates. I want to know what's happening when I'm in danger, when it's safe. No surprises. Agreed. And you don't come to this apartment again unless I specifically say it's okay. We communicate through encrypted channels only. Fair enough. And if at any point I feel like this arrangement is putting me in more danger than going to the police would, I reserve the right to change my mind. He considered that for a moment, then nodded. I can work with that. Though I should point out that going to the police at this stage would be significantly more dangerous for you than working with me. Why? Because the moment you walk into a police station with that box, you become a witness. You become someone who can testify, someone who has evidence. And the people my traitor courier is working for, they don't leave witnesses alive. At least with me, you have protection. The cold logic of his words sent a chill down her spine, but she couldn't argue with the reasoning. What's your name? She asked. June. Naomi. I know, he said, and this time the smile was more visible. I know quite a bit about you, actually. Data analyst, graduated top of your class, been at your current company for 3 years, excellent performance reviews. Despite the circumstances, Naomi felt her lips twitch. You did your homework. Then getting to business, and the gun in the box? Insurance. The kind of business I'm in, sometimes you need insurance. She nodded slowly, accepting that non-answer. So what happens now? Now, we need to move the box somewhere safer. Somewhere my courier won't think to look even if he traces it here. Where? That's where you come in. I need a location that makes sense for you to have access to, but that isn't immediately connected to your home. Somewhere you go regularly enough that your presence wouldn't be suspicious. Naomi thought for a moment, her analyst brain working through the problem. My office. I work remotely most of the time, but I go into the office twice a week for meetings. It's in a secure building, key card access, cameras everywhere. He wouldn't be able to get in without being noticed. June considered this, nodding slowly. That could work. When's your next scheduled office day? Day after tomorrow. Thursday. Perfect. That gives us time to plan the transport. They spent the next 20 minutes going over details and discussing logistics. And somehow, in the midst of that planning, Naomi found herself relaxing slightly. There was something oddly reassuring about June's methodical approach, the way he thought through every angle, considered every risk. At one point, while they were discussing timing, their hands brushed accidentally as they both reached for the notepad she'd been using to sketch out her office layout. The contact lasted barely a second, but Naomi felt an unexpected jolt of awareness. She pulled back quickly, but not before noticing that June had paused too, his eyes meeting hers for just a moment before returning to the notepad. Sorry, she muttered. No problem, he replied, his voice perhaps slightly lower than before. When he finally prepared to leave, he paused at her door. Naomi, he said, using her first name for the first time since introducing himself, I want you to know, I don't take your cooperation for granted. I understand you're trusting me with your safety, and I don't take that lightly. Don't make me regret it, she replied. I won't. He pulled out a phone, a regular smartphone, not a burner, and held it out. My direct number is programmed in. If anything feels wrong, if you notice anything suspicious, you call me immediately. Day or night. She took the phone, their fingers brushing again in the exchange. What if you're in a meeting or something? I'll answer. Always. The intensity in his voice when he said it made her believe him. After he left, Naomi stood in her living room for a long time, staring at the phone in her hand and trying to process everything that had just happened. She'd just made a deal with a crime boss. She was actively helping him hide evidence and avoid exposure. By any reasonable standard, she should be terrified, calling the police, getting as far away from this situation as possible. But instead, she felt something she hadn't felt since finding that box, a sense of control. A sense that maybe, just maybe, she could navigate this nightmare and come out the other side intact. And if she was being completely honest with herself, there was something else too. Something she definitely shouldn't be feeling about a man who just admitted to running criminal operations. "This is insane," she whispered to her empty apartment. Completely insane. But she was in it now, whether she liked it or not. She might as well see it through. Thursday morning arrived with gray skies and the promise of rain. Naomi dressed for the office in professional slacks and a blazer, trying to maintain her normal routine even though nothing about this situation was normal. The box sat in a nondescript black backpack she'd borrowed from a neighbor, claiming she needed it for carrying some files to the office. The gun and phone were still wrapped securely, and she'd added some actual work files on top to make the backpack's weight and appearance authentic. Her phone buzzed, a text from June's number. "June, team in position. You'll have eyes on you the whole route. If anything feels wrong, text urgent, and we'll intervene. Naomi, ready. June, you're doing great. See you on the other side." That last message made her pause. It was unexpectedly warm, almost personal, different from his usual efficient professionalism. The walk to the subway felt like it took hours, even though it was only 10 minutes. Naomi forced herself to maintain a normal pace, not looking around constantly even though every instinct screamed at her to watch for threats. On the subway, she looked around and wondered how many of them had illegal weapons in their bags. Probably just her. Halfway through the ride, she noticed a man standing near the doors who seemed to be watching her. 30s, athletic build, hands in his jacket pockets. Her pulse spiked. She casually pulled out her phone and typed, "Man by doors watching me. Gray jacket." The response came within seconds. "June, he's mine. Protection detail. You're safe." She exhaled slowly, her shoulders relaxing slightly. She glanced at the man again, and this time he gave her the briefest of nods, acknowledgement, not threat. The rest of the journey passed without incident. The office was mostly empty, most people still worked remotely on Thursdays. Perfect. She went directly to her desk in the corner, closed the privacy partition, and carefully removed the wrapped box from her backpack. Her assigned storage cabinet was under her desk, secured with a small lock she'd installed for personal items. She placed the box inside, locked the cabinet, and pocketed the key. "Naomi, package secured. Storage cabinet under my desk. June, perfect. Well done. Naomi, now what?" "June, now you work like a normal Thursday. I'll handle the rest." So she did. She opened her laptop, pulled up her current project, and tried to focus on analyzing quarterly sales data while a gun sat locked in a cabinet 3 feet away. The absurdity wasn't lost on her. Naomi worked at the office until mid-afternoon, managing to get through several hours of actual productive work despite the constant awareness of what was hidden in her storage cabinet. She was deep into a complex data visualization when a voice spoke from behind her. "Working hard, I see." She spun around, heart racing, and found June standing at the entrance to her cubicle. He wore a different suit than before, charcoal gray, perfectly fitted, and carried a leather messenger bag like any other professional visiting the office. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, glancing around to make sure no one was nearby. The floor was mostly empty, but a few coworkers were scattered in cubicles across the room. "Relax," June said quietly, his voice calm and reassuring. "I'm just a colleague stopping by to discuss a potential consulting project. Nothing unusual about that." He moved into her cubicle with easy confidence, setting his messenger bag down and pulling up a spare chair. To anyone watching, they would look exactly like two professionals having a work discussion. "You can't just show up here," Naomi whispered urgently. What if someone recognizes you? What if? No one here knows who I am, he interrupted gently. My legitimate businesses are completely separate from other operations. As far as anyone's concerned, I'm June Kong, owner of Kong Import Solutions, here to discuss potential data analysis consulting. He pulled out a tablet from his bag and opened it to what looked like genuine business documents, spreadsheets, logistics reports, all bearing the logo of a real company. Naomi blinked, momentarily thrown by the level of detail in his cover story. You actually run a legitimate import business? Several, actually. How do you think I move things internationally without drawing attention? The best cover is always one that's mostly true. He glanced at her computer screen. Impressive visualization, by the way. You're mapping sales trends against regional demographics. You can read data viz? She couldn't keep the surprise from her voice. I have an MBA from Wharton, he said with a slight smile. Criminal enterprise doesn't mean I'm not educated. That smile did something to her pulse that she absolutely did not want to analyze right now. So why are you really here? She asked, trying to refocus. His expression became more serious. I wanted to check on you personally. Make sure the transfer went smoothly, that you're okay. And he paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. I wanted to give you an update. The courier made his move. Her stomach tightened. What happened? He tried to access the storage locker this morning, found it empty, and immediately went to your building. He was watching your apartment for about an hour before one of my people intercepted him. So I'm in more danger now? No, June said firmly. Because as of 2 hours ago, you have 24-hour protection. You won't see them, but there are always 2 people watching your apartment, tracking your movements, making sure you're safe. The thought of being under constant surveillance should have bothered her. Instead, she felt a strange sense of relief. How long will this last? A few more days at most. We're close to identifying everyone involved in the betrayal. Once we have that information, we'll handle it and you'll be clear. Naomi studied his face, noting the slight tension around his eyes, the way his jaw was set. This is bigger than just one courier, isn't it? You're perceptive. He leaned back slightly, and when he spoke again, his voice was lower, meant only for her. It appears the betrayal goes deeper than I initially thought. The courier was working with at least 3 others in my organization. They've been systematically trying to expose our operations to a rival group. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know what you're in the middle of. You didn't ask for any of this, but you've handled it with intelligence and courage. The least I can do is be honest about the stakes. Something in his tone, respect, maybe even admiration, made her chest warm in a way that was absolutely inappropriate given the circumstances. I appreciate that, she said softly. They sat in silence for a moment, the noise of the office fading into background as they looked at each other. Naomi became acutely aware of how close he was sitting, how his dark eyes seemed to notice everything about her, not in a threatening way, but with genuine attention. You're not what I expected either, she found herself saying. No, when I saw that gun in the box, I imagined. I don't know, someone violent, aggressive, scary. Not someone who quotes data visualization principles and has an MBA. His lips curved into a genuine smile, one that reached his eyes and transformed his entire face. Disappointed? No, she admitted. Just surprised. In a good way. The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither of them was quite ready to name. Then June's phone buzzed in his pocket, breaking the spell. He checked it quickly, his expression becoming professional again. I need to go. But Naomi, he met her eyes directly. If anything feels wrong, anything at all, you call me. Don't hesitate, don't second guess. Just call. I will. Then he was gone, walking toward the elevator with the confident stride of someone who belonged everywhere he went. Naomi stared at her computer screen, not seeing the data, her hand still tingling where he'd touched it. This is so bad, she whispered to herself. This is such a bad idea. But her heart was racing and she couldn't stop smiling. The next morning, Naomi woke to an urgent text. June, stay home today. Don't go to the office. Don't leave your apartment. This ends today. Her stomach knotted with anxiety. Naomi, what's happening? June, the traitors are making their move. They think the box is still in your office. They're planning to break in during lunch hour when the building is least staffed. Naomi, and you're going to be waiting for them. June, yes. It's better you're nowhere near this. Naomi, be careful. June, always. I'll contact you when it's done. The day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Naomi tried to work from home but couldn't concentrate. She paced her apartment, checked her phone obsessively, jumped at every sound. Around 2 p.m., her phone finally rang. June's number. She answered immediately. Hello. Well, everything that was a threat to you has been handled. His voice sounded tired but satisfied. Still some loose ends within my organization, but you're safe now. Relief flooded through her so powerfully her knees went weak. You're okay? I'm fine. There was a brief confrontation, but my people handled it. The box is secured, the traitors are being dealt with. And most importantly, you're safe. Completely safe. This is over. Over, she repeated, testing the word. It felt surreal. After days of fear and tension, it was just over. I'm coming to you, June said. To retrieve the key to your storage cabinet and to officially release you from this arrangement. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Okay, she whispered. Okay. She hung up and immediately panicked about the state of her apartment. Why did she care? This was just the conclusion of a business arrangement, a dangerous situation finally resolved. Except it wasn't just that. Not anymore. She changed out of her loungewear into jeans and a soft sweater, ran a brush through her locks, and tried to calm her racing heart. When the knock came, she didn't hesitate. She opened the door. June stood there in dark pants and a black Henley instead of his usual suit, looking somehow both more casual and more dangerous. There was a small cut above his eyebrow and what looked like the beginning of a bruise on his jaw. You said there was a brief confrontation, she said, reaching out instinctively to touch near the cut, then catching herself. He caught her hand gently before she could pull away, holding it against his face. It's nothing. I've had worse. That's not reassuring. No, I suppose it's not. He stepped inside, and she closed the door behind him. The apartment suddenly felt very small with him in it. So, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. It's really over? It's really over. You're completely clear. No connection to any of this. You can go back to your normal life like none of it ever happened. Normal life, she echoed. Right. They stood in her living room, the space between them charged with everything unsaid. June still held her hand, his thumb absently tracing patterns on her palm. The key, he said finally. To the storage cabinet. Oh, right. She reluctantly pulled her hand away and retrieved the key from her purse. Here. He took it, their fingers brushing in the exchange. Thank you. For everything. For your courage, your intelligence, your trust. You could have made this situation so much worse, but instead you made it possible to resolve. You're welcome, she whispered. He should leave now. Take the key, walk out the door, let her return to her law-abiding, uncomplicated life. That was the smart play. The safe play. Neither of them moved. Naomi, he said quietly, his voice rough. I need to know. Was this just survival for you? Just making the best of a bad situation? Or was there something more? Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was it, the moment where she could lie, protect herself, end this before it became something even more complicated. There was something more, she admitted. There is something more. And that terrifies me because it's insane, and it shouldn't work, and I don't even know how it could. He closed the distance between them in 2 steps, his hands coming up to frame her face. She looked up at him. Don't leave, she whispered. Thank God, he breathed, and then his mouth was on hers. The kiss was everything the tension of the past week had been building toward, desperate, intense, full of relief and want and the acknowledgement that they'd both been fighting this from the moment he'd first walked into her apartment. His hands slid into her hair, angling her head for better access, and she gripped his shoulders, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, June rested his forehead against hers. This is complicated, he murmured. Very, she agreed. Thank you for watching till the end. If this story touched you, inspired you, or took you on a journey, don't leave without hitting the like button. Subscribe if you haven't and switch your notifications on. You don't want to miss what I got coming up. Make sure to drop in the comment section where in the world you're watching from. We're building a global community of story lovers here, and your voice is part of it. See you in the next one. Have a great day.